Hello everyone, I'm Lynn from Studio Kato and I'm so happy to be joining you again today on the Reverse Confetti YouTube channel. For today's card, I am using my favorite die cutting technique, and that is using a die cut as a stencil. But first, I am going to color in a bunch of the images from this Better with Friends stem set. These bunnies are so adorable. I made 2 cards with them, so I'm stamping pretty much all of the images from the stamp set. And you can find the second card on my channel, so I will leave the link to that video in the description below. Make sure you check that out. And for this card, I will have a blog post up on the Reverse Confetti blog as well. Now I'm using my Misti to stamp all of these images at once with onto Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock, and I'm first stamping these with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. This is an alcohol marker friendly ink, so that's perfect for coloring with my alcohol markers, which I'm going to do now. But I did leave the stamps in my Misti because I do like an embossed outline, so I will do that afterwards. Now I'm coloring this sun very simple. I'm keeping all my coloring pretty simple because the background is going to be, it's not just going to be a flat sky background, so I wanted the coloring to not be too busy, if that makes sense. So I'm sticking to a fairly limited color palette. I am using the yellow for the sun and for the bee, and then I'm using that blue that I used for the bee's wings, also in the clouds. And repeating those colors in various different images is going to keep the color palette a little bit more subtle. Now here and there you're going to see colored images just appear. Those I colored in my other video for the other card. So the brown bunny I'm going to use on another card, and I'm using the gray bunny on this one. So again, keeping the coloring very simple. I don't like harsh shadows in my coloring, so I make sure to blend them out really well. And I achieve this just by going over it a couple of times with lighter markers. I am going to indulge myself a little bit and add some pink in the bunny. I'm using some pink for the bunny's ears and for its nose. And then I should have repeated that pink in the flowers, but I went for a dark red. I am not sure why. If I were to make this card again, I would definitely reuse that pink, but I do like the hint of red in those flowers. Now once all of my coloring is done, I am going to use the coordinating dies to cut all of these images out at once. Because I only used each image one time, I can just do this with one pass through my die cutting machine. But first I did stamp these again with my Misti because I did leave the stamps in the exact same spot. I stamped it a second time with Versafine Onyx black ink, and then I can heat emboss this with Wow Clear Gloss Superfine embossing powder. I completely forgot that I did that, but yes, that's what happened. And then I die cut them. Now, as you can see, I die cut this big Egg Confetti Cuts from an A2 sized piece of cardstock. This is actually pattern paper. The pattern is on the back, and it's slightly glossy, so it's perfect for stenciling because the ink glides over it. And I hope you caught that in the video there. I also die cut the Postal cover panel die. And that is actually what I'm placing this stencil onto. Now I'm just going to use some various inks to blend a scene through this. So the scene is actually going to be striped. There's only going to be a scene in the openings of this big Egg Confetti cut. So I'm starting out with some dark green at the bottom for the grass. And then I figured I wanted a defined edge of my grass patch. And my favorite way to do this, and the quickest way, is to just tear up a piece of purple tape or any masking tape you may have. You can also use masking paper for this if you prefer that. And just blend up against that with your green ink. This is going to give you a defined grassy hill, and because the way I blend my skies, the lightest blue is always touching the grass, I don't actually have to mask off the grass for this. So when I blend on my sky, and I just blend on the lightest blue a little bit over the green, and no one is going to notice. So once I peel away that jagged purple tape, I can then move on to my sky. And I'm using some more Pink Fresh Studio inks for this and some blending brushes. I have a blending brush for light blue and one for darker blue. And I'm starting out with the light blue, so I have a nice base color, and then I can just add in more definition towards the top. But you see my paper underneath the stencil shift a bit. That's completely my fault. I don't know why I didn't tape the paper down. Usually I do. And usually I add a piece of purple tape folded over so it's sticky on both sides, and I add that to the back of the paper I'm blending onto. With my ink blending done, I can just remove that stencil and watch the magic appear. I still love the magic of stenciling and embossing. Those are some of my favorite techniques. And then I can figure out where to place my images. Now I did have some idea of where to place these images because I had to plan which images to use for each card. Again, one of another card with these bunnies is going to be on my channel, so make sure you check that out in the link below. But yeah, that was the way I wanted my images to be. And now I cut a card base a little bit smaller than usual so it would fit behind that postal cover panel, so you wouldn't see the card base behind that. This is still going to stand up perfectly fine. It's not going to be an issue. And once that's adhered down onto my card base, I can prop all of these images up on some foam tape. I actually fold my foam tape in half, so I have 2 layers of foam tape and also release paper on both sides, and that makes it really easy to cut it down with scissors. So I don't buy foam squares anymore, I just use foam tape. Now all that's left to do is adhere that little bee, and I did think about adding some embellishments but decided against it at the last second. I really like this card as is. I like the simplicity of it. I did make a matching envelope, but I did that off camera because I had a bunch of cards to make. So I made a matching envelope out of just some really beautiful pastel green cardstock. And I think that matches the spring vibe of this card. I hope you like it. I really like this card. I love using shaped dies like this as stencils. I also did this with a Christmas tree die cut by Reverse Confetti before. I'll see if I can find the link to that video or blog posts, and I will leave that in the description below as well if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you check out the second bunny card on my channel, and I hope to see you next time.